Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Goodrum Show with me, Chris Goodrum. As per usual, a big thank you to everybody that watched last week's episode of the show, liked, commented, all that kind of stuff. That very, very much appreciated. I've still got some comments to catch up on, and I'll obviously try to do those as soon as I possibly can. Had some, nice comments, certainly from JJ Corrie, from the brand ambassador and the rep and all that. Although the nice comments came before they'd actually watched the episode of the show. It was like, oh, cheers, thanks for that, I'm going to share it with everybody, and never heard anything else. I'm assuming that meant that everybody was more or less happy with what I said. I mean, I can't see where there was any negativity in last week's episode of the show, so I'm pretty certain that everybody was happy with that, so that's good. Anyway, this week, is everybody going to be happy with this week's episode of the show? I don't know, because we're looking at, I fancy doing an American episode of the show. I haven't done one for a while, and I have two new releases from Jack Daniels to look at. No, stop sniggering, stop rolling your eyes. Yes, Jack Daniels. Before I progress, I'd better say that any comments I make during today's episode of the show are wholly my own and have no bearing or relevance to the company employs me, just in case somebody gets upset. Yes, right, where was it? Jack Daniels, right, okay, yeah, stop, hang on, no. What's the best way to kind of sum up Jack Daniels Distillery? Perplexing, I think, is the word. I mean, look at it, dispassionately, I suppose. At one end of the spectrum, you've got the old number 7. It is, frankly, Coke fodder. I mean, it's young, it's sweet, it's kind of probably not seen the inside of an oak barrel for about 5 minutes and then it's bottled. I mean, it is not a particularly great product at the end of the day, but it sells by the bucketful. Thousands, millions of bottles are sold. People love it. They love their JD and Coke. People that probably don't even drink whiskey are quite happy to drink a JD and Coke. I mean, it is ubiquitous. It is, I mean, God almighty, you can now buy pre-mixed Jack Daniels and Coke in a can. I mean, am I being a complete snob here? I mean, well, yeah, a bit, I suppose. But again, looking at the range dispassionately, so you got the sort of like the old number 7. You've got sort of Gentleman Jack, which frankly ain't that much better than the old number 7 in actual fact. And then at the top of the tree, you kind of you have the single barrel, the Silver Select, which are good. I mean, they are variable because they're single barrel bottlings, but by and large, I like what they do. So it goes to show that Jack Daniels, given a little bit of time, a little bit of love and attention, I suppose, can produce a lovely spirit. And when you think about it, are they any different to any other American distillery? I mean, let's take example the other distillery that I'm looking at today, Heaven Hill, or shall we say more precisely the Evan Williams range. Look at it this way, Evan Williams, entry level Evan Williams is called the extra aged. Extra aged over what? I mean, extra aged over not being aged. I mean, firstly, stupid bloody name really for a bottling. It's exactly the same as the old number 7. It's Coke fodder. I mean, again, it's kind of sweet. It's it's not a particularly interesting bottling. I mean, its only saving grace is it's bottled at 43%, which kind of like takes a little bit of an edge off the sweetness. But if it was bottled at 40%, I mean, it would be a Jack Daniels clone, frankly. Next tier on the ladder is the 1783. Again, you can argue that ain't much better than the extra age. I mean, the last time I tasted it, it was frankly a dreadful bottling. I mean, it tasted like they had basically dumped a load of old spirit that had been sort of aged in shagged out old casks, frankly, and it just tasted tired, bitter, old, woody. It was not a very good bottling at all. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have the single barrel bottlings. Again, really good quality by and large. Again, some batch barrel variation from time to time, it has to be said, and obviously having 2 samples of said single barrel bottling, we can have a look at and see what the difference is. And so yeah, really, you know, people, you know, take the mick out of Jack Daniels, they lampoon it, but in reality, you know, no better or no worse than the Jim Beam or Evan Williams, for example, as I've just kind of like pointed out. And so at the end of the day, I'm kind of looking forward to tasting these 2 new bottlings, and obviously I'll explain a little bit more about them when I actually get to them. Now, obviously, 4 whiskies does not make an episode of the show, and unfortunately I didn't have another bottling from each of those 2 distilleries to sort of shoehorn in, so making up the 6 is a couple of curios, I suppose. The first is called Legend, and it's bottled at 47%, and here we go, well, it's not really linked to Jack Daniels at all, I mean, I wouldn't talk that my bum. Basically, it is the brainchild of Fred No, the master distiller at Jim Beam, and the House of Suntory chief blender Shinju Fukuyu, something like that. I mean, I do apologise if I've just murdered your surname, but there you go. So basically, it's effectively, you know, it's one of Fred No's Jim Beam recipes, and obviously, as we well know, Jim Beam, like Heaven Hill, have, you know, a lot of different recipes that they play around with, so it's Fred No's kind of like distillation, initially aged and obviously in first fill, or brand new virgin white oak, and then Mr. Fukuyu gets hold of it and basically ages a portion of it in ex-Californian red wine casks and some sherry casks, and then it's all blended together, and you're just thinking, ooh, that's a bit different, isn't it? You know, I mean, and it could be a complete mess. I mean, or it could be an absolute work of genius. You never know. But considering the 2 people that are behind it, and you know their sort of standing in the whiskey industry, you're kind of like hoping that it's the latter rather than the former. And to round off the 6, I thought I'd chuck in another Tennessee whiskey. But this is where things get a little bit weird. Now, this is a Bartles whiskey. Now, Bartles whiskey sample, right? Okay. On the label, it says Tennessee Bourbon, 2011, 60%. Can I find any information out about it whatsoever? No. I tried getting hold of Bartles, but couldn't get hold of anybody. And I think I don't even know whether it was actually bottled or not. I mean, this has happened from time to time. I would, you know, get mainly independent bottlers would send some pre-samples, you know, pre-bottling samples, and sometimes, you know, not because of what I said, but sometimes these things never actually came to fruition. I remember more than one sample coming from the Alchemist, going back many years ago now, which never actually ended up being bottled. So there's a possibility that this never got bottled. So I think I've got it down as a Highland Laird Tennessee Bourbon, distilled in 2011, possibly bottled in 2016 or 17, 5 or 6 years of age. Now, I know Bartles did distribute Malts of Scotland, and I do know that Malts of Scotland do have a Tennessee whiskey bottling from time to time called Tullahoma, I believe. But I've checked as much as I can against those bottlings, and again, I can't find a bottling that comes from 2000 or was distilled in 2011 a bottle at 60%. So I'm pretty certain it's not a Malts of Scotland bottling. So it's a bit of an enigma here, because I don't really know what the hell it is, apart from obviously it's from Tennessee and it doesn't come from Jack Daniels. So wonder where that one could come from. But anyway, so I found the sample when I was doing some digging, as one has a tendency to do so, and so I thought, well, I don't know what the hell it is. I'll make an assumption it's a Highland Laird bottling, and well, we'll just taste it anyway. It's all for fun, as they say at the end of the day. So yeah, I think this is going to be a good episode of the show, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm hoping, expecting quite a lot of comments, shall we say. Hopefully they're not irate comments from Jack Daniels lovers, but anyway, we'll we'll see, won't we? Anyway, so not much more to say other than let's just take a look at today's one.
Come true, I'm holding a letter.
Right, okay, so let's kick off with the two Jack Daniels bottlings. The first one we're going to be looking at is the Jack Daniels Bonded. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, hello, it's yet another rebadging of the old number 7. And, well, it isn't actually. It's a bottled in bond bottling, which... no, just got to remember this correctly now. I forget when it was actually that the term bottle in bond was introduced, but it was kind of introduced as a signifier of quality, shall we say, as far as they could do that, because it had some stringent attachments. Now, I think 4 years of age, had to be aged for 4 years of age, had to be the product of a single vintage or a single distillation or year's distillation, had to be bottled at 50%. Now, you know, going back to when it was introduced, I can see it, you know, that most whiskies were kind of bottled, well, you know, again, after as short a time as possible in the cask. So what they had here was basically, if you wanted to put bottled in bond on the label, you had to basically age it for the minimum amount of time, etc., etc. So, although you can argue maybe not quite such a quality, because you could have crap spirit that's been aged for that length of time, and, you know, but it did kind of set out a certain level of criteria. Now, 10 years ago, if we can kind of go forward or backwards a little bit, as the case may be, 10 years ago, I mean, the bottle in bond was kind of sort of still used, but it wasn't really being used as a quality descriptor, because, you know, a lot of the American distilleries were bottling fairly oldish spirit in relative terms. You know, the entry-level bottlings certainly would be, you know, at least sort of 4, 5, 6 years of age. You know, you'd often see, you know, 10, 12-year-old American whiskies, and so the bottle in bond really was kind of, frankly, quite meaningless to a certain extent. Now, I would say the opposite is exactly the case, because we've got to the situation where American distilleries, like a lot of distilleries around the world, are cutting their age statements. They're bottling their stuff way, way younger than it ever was. And so I would say, and I would argue, that the bottle in bond has now become, again, a very relevant label, because it says 4 years old, you know, 50%. Yeah, etc., etc., etc. So anyway, so we know exactly, or we know at least the minimum age of the spirit in the bottle, don't we? So, which is really good. Anyway, so this is the, like I said, so this is the bottled in bond. I believe the mash bill for Jack Daniels is 80% corn, 12% barley, 8% rye, and obviously this was bottled, I'm guessing, at some stage this year. Number 2 is the second of the new bottlings from Jack Daniels. This is called the Triple Mash. Again, bottled at 50%, so I believe bottled in bond yet again. Interestingly, this is slightly different. Again, this is not just a slightly higher ABV bottling of the old number 7. This is actually a blend of American whiskey. One assumes spirit comes from Jack Daniels, aged in refilled casks. A blend of American whiskey, rye, certainly we know Jack Daniels makes 100% rye, can't say I'm a big fan of it either, and the Tennessee whiskey. So, interesting, different, and, you know, quite happy, quite prepared to kind of give it a shot. Then we're going to move on to the Highland Laird bottling. So, like I said, George Dickel, distilled in 2011, possibly bottled in 2016, possibly later, possibly 5 years old, possibly 6, 60%. But anyway, it's just, like I say, just a bit of fun. And then we're going to move on to the 2 Evan Williams bottlings. So the first one is from way, way back in time. This was a 2003 distilled bottling, 9 years of age, bottled at 43.3%. Now, ironically, so this would have been bottled at 2012, just as this one was being distilled. So there's madness here. That was no, there's method in this madness. I think. No, there's madness here. So this is the 2012. Now again, incident. This is the Evan Williams single barrel bottling age statement. Well, no, it doesn't carry an age statement, but you can obviously see they have the distillation date and the bottling date on the bottle, so you can kind of work it out. That age has been dropping off as well. So where this first one, the 2003, was a 9-year-old. The 2012 is now an 8-year-old. I mean, okay, you can argue what's a few months. Anyway, so don't know the cask number of the 2003. The 2000, because it was a sample that came from the World Whisky Awards. But the 2012 cask number 1743 was bottled in December of 2000, distilled in December of 2012, bottled in December of 2020. And finally we'll be looking at the Legent. So this was bottled, I think, probably sometime last year, and like I said, so it's effectively Fredno's spirit, partially and then some of it's finished in red wine, some in sherry, and then Mr. Fuck You, Fucker You, gets hold of it and blends it all together, and we have an interesting end product, I guess. So anyway, that's the lineup. Let's kick off with a bit of JD then. Right, okay, so this is the bonded. Let's see what the nose gives us. Right, well, obviously lovers of JD will pick up on the fact it's JD. It kind of kicks off with some sweet corn, some caramel, toffee. But you know what? Getting a little bit more spiciness. There's some nippy spices, dark spices. Nice bit of rye, dark chocolate, vanilla. A little bit of an edge, a little bit of an astringency. Yeah, I kind of quite like this. It's not one-dimensional. It has a bit of character, you know. It's 4 years of age, and you know, we're getting a little bit of complexity here. We're getting some interest. We're getting more than just sweet corn. Not getting a huge amount of oak, actually. The oak is really sort of sitting in the background. It's not. I mean, it's adding a touch of vanilla, but we're not getting a huge amount of vanilla. We're getting some, you know, some nice structure, shall we say? Anyway, let's see what parts are. Ooh, Mrs. That's a hell of a finish. Right, so okay, it opens up again, noticeably Daniel, sweet corn, a little bit of soft rye, and then, hang on, that rye's developing. Ooh, that's getting a little bit more spicier. Wow, that's getting really spicy. That's really intense. That finish is absolutely gorgeous. Charred oak, a little bit more vanilla, sweet corn coming back on the finish. It's nicely bookended by the corn, it has to be said. And it has some complexity. It has some complexity. It has some interest. It has some evolution. You know, develops lovely. And that finish, the finish, just as kind of like, oh, all those rye spices, nippy, dark, chocolatey rye spices. It was like slightly bitter as well. I mean, oh, just bloody good. Right, okay, I have to sit down for a minute. I am sat down. Right, no, honestly, let's move on to the triple mash. Let's see what the nose gives us on this end. Again, it's got that sort of sweetness. It's got the corny sweetness, fudge, quite fudgy, fuller, rounder, less rye intensity, a little biscuity note, a little bit of vanilla. Possibly a little bit more oak, a little bit more grilled nuts. Definitely sweeter than the bonded. I'm not, like I said, although there's a rye component, I'm not getting quite so much rye intensity on the nose. and I'm getting more oak as well. I'm getting more char, getting more, you know, charred oak. Okay, it's not a bad nose. I'm kind of preferring the bonded nose, but let's see what pass on. A bit sweeter, a bit softer. Again, more oak character, more charred oak. Again, opens up with the sweet corn and a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of toffee. Starts to bitter a bit on the mid palate. Those spices and that rye kind of coming in quite sedately, I would say. It's not kind of like, it doesn't quite have the rye intensity of the bonded, but it does kind of pick up quite nicely and bitters quite nicely as well on the finish. And although I don't get too much sweetness returning, it's kind of, it's fairly linear, one would say, but it's got some nice progression to it. There's a bit of marzipan, a bit of grilled nuts maybe on the aftertaste, but the sweetness of the corn doesn't kind of come back like it does on the bonded. That's interesting. I mean, it's a nice whiskey. It's good. Like I said, it's a bit linear, but it's got progression, and I think the quality is pretty good. So yeah, it gets another thumbs up for me, I think.
Colors of dream, calling mercy from God and all your night.
Right, okay, so let's move on to the Highland Laird Tennessee whiskey. Let's see what the nose gives us on this end, shall we? Very, very rye centred, herbally rye, intense dark chocolate, coffee, almost astringent. I mean, it is, well, it is 60% for God's sake. Although the alcohol, it's just kind of emphasising the intensity of the rye rather than, you know, you're sort of sniffing alcohol per se. A little bit of perfume, a little bit of violet, just a little sliver of oak sweetness just sitting below the surface. I mean, it's a bit on the raw side, it has to be said. I mean, you know, it's 5 years old, it's 60%, it's really emphasised the intensity of character. There's a little bit of, if you sort of sniff hard, I get sort of kind of wheat flakes. But, you know, it's intense. You know, it's young, intense. I quite like it. Anyway, let's see what passes on. That is a master's finish. That is an astringent sour fruit finish, it has to be said. I mean, yeah, sour fruit, chocolatey rye, spicy rye. I mean, God, that's intense. I mean, it kicks off with a little bit of the oak, a little bit of corn character, a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of toffee, but I mean, that rye kind of comes in really quite quickly. Spices, dark chocolate. There's a little sort of rose petally mar on the aftertaste, which is not a surprise considering its age. I mean, that is dusty as well. The aftertaste is really dusty, really spicy. I mean, that is really complex. That is one hell of a whiskey, it has to be said. And like I said, I have absolutely no idea whether it was ever bottled or not. I'm assuming it was. Let's put a little drop of water with it and see what that does to the nose and the palate. Right. It's possibly the sample has got a little bit old now. I think I'll give it the benefit of the doubt on that one. It's kind of, it's a little bit sort of, yeah. It's kind of lost its intensity and is more kind of slightly sort of soapy, spirity notes. But like I said, that may well be the fact that this sample is, well, been hanging around for 10 years. I mean, I'm pretty bloody amazed it's in some kind of, you know, tasteable condition, considering, you know, there was about sort of yay much in the bottom of the bottle. Let's see what that's on. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have put water with it really. It's done it absolutely no favours at all. But so we'll just forget that I ever did that on its own, and it was intense. It was lovely. It was, you know, everything that just I think was just great about George Dickel. I mean, I love the fact that, you know, you have Dickel and Daniels, and they are just so different to each other, and it's just such a shame you just can't get hold of any Dickel at the moment. Well, not in the UK anyway. You probably can get hold of it quite comfortably in America, but certainly not over here, unfortunately. Right, okay, so let's move on, and we're looking at the first of the two Evan Williams single barrel bottlings. This is the 2003, so 9 years old. That's a nice nose again. Dark chocolatey rye, soft rye. We're not really spicy rye, we're soft rye. Treacle, corn, burnt wood. There's a lovely earthiness to it. It's got a sort of a beautifully balanced nose between the sort of sweetness and the earthiness. A little bit of vanilla, touch of tangerine, orange, lime, licorice. That's a lovely nose. I love this nose. It's just so gorgeous. I mean, it really is a lovely nose. It's soft. It's, like I said, the rye content is not heavily spiced. It's kind of quite soft and chocolatey and sweet rye. That's a lovely nose. Very, very, very impressive. Let's see what that's like. It's not quite living up to the nose, it has to be said. It's okay. I mean, one would say maybe a little bit underpowered. I mean, I don't have any intensity. It's all very soft. It's all very nice. A little bit of corn, a little bit of rye, a little bit of burnt wood. There's a touch of spice on, just coming through on the finish, but it's a bit polite. It's a bit kind of, you know, it's not really sort of, you know, setting the pants on fire, it has to be said. You know, it's kind of nice. And, you know, and coming after the sort of George Dickel, which was intense, you come to nice. You know, maybe I'm doing a bit of an injustice, I suppose. But this is the thing. This is, here we are with sort of single cask bottlings. You know, it's not just a thing about American whiskey. It's single cask bottlings. Yeah, per se, you just don't know what you're going to get at the end of the day. There are too many variables, you know, and some of them are absolutely stunning, and some of the single cask bottlings are nice. So yeah, this is a sort of this is a very nice whiskey. Right, okay, so let's move on to the more recent bottling. This is the 2012 vintage. Let's see what the nose gives us on this end, shall we? Now that's a better nose. There's more life and intensity. Okay, it might be that the fact that that sample is probably getting a little bit tired. Maybe I should have given it a bit of the benefit of the doubt on that, but more intensity, more oak, more caramelly, kind of toasty oak, and quite citric. And also the rye is a little bit more intense, a little bit more spicy, and peppery. It feels younger as well. I'm getting that sort of rose petal Mar character, but it's kind of worked in quite nicely with the rest of the spirit. It's not like it's kind of, you sniff it and go, oh my god, I'm just getting raw young spirit. It's quite, it's got a, like I say, it kind of makes it feel a bit tight, a bit kind of compact. it's that citric note. It really does kind of make it feel kind of quite taut, and but it's a nice nose. It's interesting. It's a lot more entertaining, shall we say. It's not quite so. It's a bit of an edge to it. It's a bit of a roughness there. Well, you know, sort of. So it's kind of not quite so polite, I suppose, if you want. Anyway, let's see what it passes like. Young, citric, intense, so wheat flakes. Again, slight sort of eau de vie kind of character. Spicier rye, more intense, peppery, spicy rye. No real oak. I'm not really getting any vanilla, not getting any softening notes from that. The rye kind of like is firmly in control. There's a little bit of sort of like slight sweet corn notes just kind of sitting underneath. But that emphasis on the citrus is making it feel quite austere, quite intense, and to me, a more interesting bottling. It's not quite so nice. It's not quite so polite. It's got a little bit more, you know, cojones, shall we say. There's a little bit more going on there, a little bit more intensity. Like I said, some part of that might be down to the fact that the 2003 sample is quite old, but you know, like I said, it just classically sort of emphasises the whole idea, you know, difference of single cask bottlings, and the fact that yes, you might sort of like have an idea of what the distillery produces, the style of the distillery, that kind of thing, but obviously single cask bottlings are always going to sort of differ, and I think this has kind of proven that quite well. And although I would say neither of them were bad bottlings, certainly not bad bottlings. There was one that was clearly considerably more interesting than the other. So anyway. Right, okay, so let's move on to the Legent Bourbon. Let's see what the nose gives on this end, shall we? That's a nice nose. Right, I'm certainly getting the sort of like the bourbon-y character. It's got that sort of, you know, slight corniness, a little bit of spicy, peppery rye. There's some lovely kind of winey red fruit notes, and touch of dried sherry notes as well. But it kind of, it's not the finishing casts are certainly not overwhelming it. It's certainly obviously a bourbon first and foremost. It's been handled really nicely, really judiciously, and it's an augmented bourbon, shall we say. Maybe they should create a whole new category of American whiskey. Augmented bourbon, there you go. That is just a beautiful nose. I mean, it's just lovely. I mean, it is unique, different, and it's getting quite bready now. It's getting really full, really quite fat, really absolutely. This is the sort of nose that you can just keep on sticking your nose in, and it's just a lovely whisk. It's touch of, and you just get. I'm getting nuances now. A little bit of dark chocolate. Like I said, it's getting a bit bready, a bit kind of almost doughy, and all the while it's just harmonious. Really nice. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's see what it passes on. That's bloody young. A lot of rose petal mar on the finish. Some people will get put off by that. I mean, it opens up nicely, sort of spicy rye, a little bit of corn, and then we kind of move into the sort of like slightly darker red fruits, a little bit of dried fruit, and then we kind of the sort of finishing cask kind of peters out a little bit, you know, on the end of the mid palate, shall we say, and the spirit is kind of like left to come through, and it is a bit on the young side. Like I said, you get this kind of rose petally mar kind of raw spirit, although it's not kind of unpleasantly raw. It's nice peppery aftertaste, it has to be said. It's kind of like sort of, you know, the spirit is the sort of omnipresent bit. It kind of like says, you know, definitely a bourbon, feels like quite a relatively high rye content bourbon that is at the base of this, and it just kind of outlives the sort of finishing casks, and you know, I like the balance. I like it. It's got, you know, a real nice combination of characteristics and flavours, and it's got some intensity. And like I say, yes, it's a bit young on the finish. It's got a bit of a rose petally kind of Mari kind of, but it's got a sweetness there, sort of like a nice sort of sweet rose petally note. It's not a sort of a hard sort of austere kind of like grab you by the nuts kind of Mar-like character. It's got a softness to it. So it is. It's got a nice kind of combination of sort of like, you know, politeness and sort of roughness, I suppose, for want of a better word. And yeah, you know what? I like that. That's interesting, but in a good way.
You know I have to go.
Well, okay, so let's sum today's episode of the show up. Right, well, bottling number 1, the Jack Daniel's Bonded. Yeah, gets my seal of approval. I like that. I think that's good. Love the way that the fact that it's got some complexity, it's got some progression, it's got some intensity. The alcohol certainly helps that, and draw that finish. I mean, the finish was just absolutely to die for. And you know, if you like American whiskies, you know, don't be a snob. Buy the Bonded. Bloody good. Triple mash. Yeah, I'm kind of like less enamoured by it. I still think it's a good whiskey, nevertheless. It's got some nice progression to it. It doesn't quite sort of float my boat as much as the Bonded does, but you know, I'm quite happy to drink that. That's really quite pleasant whiskey at the end of the day. Well, the Bartles, or the Highland Laird, or whatever the hell it was really bloody good. I mean, George Dickel. I mean, have you ever come across bad bottling of George Dickel? I mean, I've come across some maybe slightly kind of iffy's the wrong word. No, what am I saying? Iffy. You know, kind of bottlings, but more often than not, you know, Dickel is pretty bloody good. The 2003 bottling of the Evan Williams single barrel. Okay, it might be the sample has deteriorated a little bit, but it's very nice. It's very polite. It's very kind of okay. The 2012 just has a little bit more about it, and again, can you get hold of this stuff in the UK? I mean, you know, as a, you know, putting my retailer hat on now, I've been trying to get hold of this for God knows how long, and it's just always continuing out of stock, and there's never been a problem before. But anyway, if you can get hold of a later bottling, like I said, the trouble is it's a single cask bottling. They vary, but yeah, you know, that's life. What you can get hold of is a Legent Bourbon. I mean, that is bloody good. I mean, you know, forget the fact that you don't know anything about it at all. It's just called Legent. The guys behind it are, you know, serious whiskey guys. You know, Fred No and him from Suntory. I won't say his name again because I'm going to say it incorrectly, and certainly after I've had a few, I will probably say, well, anyway, don't wish to be offensive. So yeah, all I can say is, bloody good. Love it. Really love it. And again, alright, it's not cheap. I mean, is whiskey ever cheap these days? I would certainly recommend getting hold of a bottle of that, because that is just a lovely whiskey. So anyway, that's this week's episode of the show in the bag. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it entertaining. I found it very entertaining, it has to be said. And it's always fun to do a bit of an American episode of the show. And you know what my sense of humour is like. You know, hopefully I've not offended anybody. And well, if I have, then good afternoon and good dramming.